Hello, my name is Emmanuel Kindle, and I'm the host of the Blue Guardian podcast. So, I wanted to first off introduce who I am to those who don't know me. I run a company called Blue Guardian. We provide digital tools for parents to keep their kids safe online. We give you information on trends and threats that you need to know about. And essentially, we try to keep you up to date with all the information when it's regarding social media and technology. So I started this podcast, and it's the first episode. So I started this podcast to first off give some more light and just give some more information on things out there when it's related to social media. After spending all this time, a year, for many more, it's been longer, some shorter. In COVID, we've really seen the reliance of technology in our lives. uh, we've been pretty dependent, whether it's Uber Eats, whether it's Zoom for work or school, whether it's Netflix to keep yourself entertained rather than, going out with your friends or playing a sport. We've really had to rely on technology and social media. So I want to really just keep some awareness of what some negative things are, what some concerns or things that you need to be concerned about. But what are some positive things that we should continue? And as we open out of COVID, what are some things we kind of want to retain in our lives? So, one thing I really want to do with this podcast and the direction I really want to take it in is I want to bring as many guests related to social media, to technology, to talk about both sides. Oftentimes you only hear one side, or you only see the positive or you only see the negative. And I want to find a way to kind of bridge that gap for people and parents and young people who essentially can either see only one side of social media and are really kind of viewing the one side. I want to bring both sides, and I want to bring as many people who have stories and experience and work in the field and experts to talk about. The thing I wanted to talk about actually is I wanted to first off talk about a positive story, right? So the first thing is kind of how social media has been a big factor for our lives, right? So we completely shut down during COVID, and I know some people actually will view this as a negative story, frankly. But the main thing that you've got to really recognize is a lot of people have been able to essentially work, go to school, and start a new business because of COVID, and because of the digital landscape we have out here, technology, social media, everything that's online, the internet. A lot of people have been able to kind of find a new livelihood. A lot of people have been able to kind of adjust certain aspects of their work and get a little bit more freedom. And that's a positive thing. You're reading all these articles, and there's so many companies are actually taking active steps and saying, we're going to allow you to work 3 days at home and 2 days in the office. Some two days at home, 3 days in office, whatever that day. For some actually, every day in the office, completely your choice. Come in, and the choice is yours. That's just a lot of more freedom for people, and it's a lot more essentially opportunity. And really like just to hone in and focus and just plug away, get down to work. And some people are just the complete opposite. I'm one of those that I just completely get a lot of energy from the people around me, and I'm completely extroverted, and that's okay. But the beauty of this is that now there's more of a balance. There's a better dynamic. So that's a major positive thing. Now a lot of people, when it comes to Zoom, when it comes to kind of university or schooling, it's been seen as a major hassle, and it's actually been a struggle for a lot of people and a lot of students. And that's one thing I really wanted to touch in on. Um, that a lot of students have been completely destabilized from what was going on with COVID, completely destabilized in terms of their academics, and many kids are unfortunately falling behind. And some kids just didn't really thrive this year, and that's a massive issue that we need to find a solution for. Um, but there are some kids who felt a lot better uh, at home. They felt a lot more independent. They felt more comfortable. Not all kids, again, not all kids like essentially spending 8 hours a day uh, in school every day. It can be an emotional drain for many people, and it can actually be, you know, I knew a lot of people growing up, and again, I'm a very extroverted person, but I knew a lot of people kind of growing up, and they said, I used to hate coming to school. It was such a drain on me, and I thought that was so kind of foreign because I loved kind of going to school. I loved kind of stepping in and seeing people and uh, but a lot of people thought it was a drain and it was just a negative thing to come to school. And it actually was a major drain on young people's mental health. So when it comes to giving people more freedom to kind of choose the days you want to come into school, the days you want to stay at home and just relax and take a mental health day, I think that's a positive thing. I think we need to make more courses asynchronous and kind of give that more of that freedom because a lot of it actually has to do with mental health. You're in class, and if you like class, that's fine, but you should also have the option now that we've seen, or at least we've operated within this environment. I think both elements need to essentially come together, and that's the main thing. And again, it depends what school board you're in. Completely depends what school you go to, or university or college. But that's the main thing. That if you have the opportunity and you have that, just count yourself as a very lucky person, and just take the most out of that. So when it comes to kind of a negative story, and something that's quite unfortunate. And I thought this is actually quite of an interesting story. So even it's not going to be like, when I say negative story, I don't actually mean that this is going to always be kind of like a downer. I don't necessarily mean that this is like something you're going to like, tear up hearing. This is just something that's just not a positive thing about social media. So the main thing, and this is actually kind of an old documentary. It's not necessarily new, and it came out during kind of the midst of COVID. Uh, but you have the social dilemma. So this is a documentary on Netflix. So this is a Netflix original that was like quite kind of scary. So it goes behind the scenes with like some of the pioneers of social media, and it kind of unravels what the real intent is, right? And the truth is, they reveal a bunch of new features that you see as convenient or incremental improvements, and often they're not. They are perfectly calibrated decisions to make, made by like some of the brightest minds to like find a way to sell you more and to kind of gather more of your attention. And that's the currency, of social media. It's attention. And one of the craziest, and like it was like a hard hitting line from the Netflix original was, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. And that really hit me. And it really hits you because essentially, if it's all free, if you're watching YouTube, if you're watching whatever, if you're on a free social media app, someone was paid to make that app. So someone needs to get paid, and that money needs to come from somewhere. So if you're not paying for the product, if you're not paying a subscription, if you're not essentially, in many cases, even if you are paying a subscription, by the way, but if you're not paying a subscription, if you're not paying an initial fee, you are the product. They are selling your data, they are selling your attention, and they are selling it to the highest bidder, right? So this was actually quite a scary thing when you think about it, because the goal for Facebook, for YouTube, for most social media platforms, uh, is to extract as much attention from you as possible, right? So that means adding features that will get you to stay an extra second or 1 minute to gather your attention. That means essentially giving you content that essentially will keep you watching or listening, or staying connected much much longer. And this doesn't always necessarily need to be a bad thing, right? So like if I am learning on, like if I'm out here and I'm trying to follow some lectures for like a chemistry course, and like I'm getting the best recommendations, then that's a great thing, right? So it's not always a bad thing. You can be trying to study for the LSAT or the MCAT, or you can be trying to find more information on a subject that you're very passionate about, and you get that information. It's the complete win for yourself. Don't get me wrong. Just because there's an algorithm, just because they're vying for your attention, just because they're trying to sell you content that will really capture your attention, that does not always mean that's a bad thing, you know. But here's the thing. It can be, right? And oftentimes you see it and you're not always aware, right? So you see a piece of content of which really riles you up and gets you riled up in a negative emotion, and you press for the next video and you stay and you watch the video for much longer and it gathers your attention. And oftentimes, we've seen studies on this negative news, news that's extremely biased or in many cases completely fake, right? Actually gathers people's attention much longer. So it keeps you kind of connected for far, far longer. And that's a problem. And essentially, a lot of people are exploiting that, right? A lot of these tech companies are exploiting that. So instead of kind of giving you content that's best for your mental health, that has like you essentially the best consideration for you, it's not always doing that. It's there to essentially extract as much attention. And for many people, it can be a positive or a negative thing. In many cases, it's actually a bit of both. In many cases, I would say it's mostly negative. So essentially, you have a lot of people who are just living in two completely like separate worlds, right? And they're kind of in their own social media bubble. And it's very hard for these people to come together to have a conversation and to essentially like come to any common ground because there is no bases on which they can agree on, right? And that's a major problem because we have so many differences, we have so much things we need to solve. There's a lot of problems out there, and the more we're being kind of pulled together inside our own like in our own social media bubbles, whether it's a bifurcation, whether you want to call it, whether it's even more than that, uh, that's a problem that we essentially need to solve. So how you're being sold. So this actually is also written on our website, www.blueguardian.ca, and you can go check that out on our blog. And we actually go deeper into it if you want to learn more about kind of how social media companies sell you, how social media companies kind of capture your attention. And if you want to learn more about this, yeah, you can definitely go to our website and read the full article. And if you're really into it, watch the entire documentary, because Facebook also issued a response, and I'll be balanced and I'll be completely fair to them. And I'll actually read it out in a second, but just so you're aware, like these aren't just some random people on the street, right? These are the people who made the algorithm. These are the ones who actually designed it. And they came together to make a documentary to criticize their own creation. So that's actually quite strong. I definitely recommend you reading it at Blue Guardian. And I'll read Facebook's response in all fairness. So, what Facebook says is, rather than offer a nuanced look at technology, it gives a distorted view on how social media platforms work to create a convenient scapegoat for what are difficult and complex societal problems. The film creators do not include insights from those currently working at the company or any experts that take a different view to the narrative put forth by the film. They also don't acknowledge, critically or otherwise, the efforts already taken by the companies to address many of the issues they raise. Instead, they rely on commentary from those who haven't been there on the inside for many years. And yes, a lot of these people have essentially left the insides of Facebook. That's something to be aware. And by the way, uh, you don't take something like this just for on face value. I think it's up to people to kind of do some more research, and you got to hear both sides, but there's validity to both sides. Like at the end of the day, the people who made the documentary uh, are some of the key people who designed these algorithms, right? So I'm actually going to try to get as many people who actually know more about these algorithms. I'm going to try to see if I can find some guests who can talk about this subject a little bit more, because I think this is actually really interesting. And I actually want to learn a lot more. And I know a lot of you guys are actually quite interested to kind of hear how social media kind of works in the back end and how it kind of guides us, in many ways programs us to essentially get us connected on what we want, but essentially also what they want. Because again, when you're talking about who's purchasing your attention, uh, it's not always going to even who you want the most, right? It's going to the highest bidder. So when you're watching an ad, uh, yes, many cases they are targeted. It's like an FBI agent who's like going through all your social media clicks and going through everything. I don't know how the algorithm works, but they tend to be accurate. You're shopping on a website and 2 minutes later you're seeing an ad for that website, right? So but you got to understand, they are the highest bidder, right? So they're bidding on your attention. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's always what's best for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's always what you're interested in. This is a business, and the currency is your attention. So that's the last thing I'll say, and I'll leave it at that. So the first thing I want to say is thank you so much for your time. I look forward to making some more content, to bringing some more guests, and touching on some more hard-hitting subjects, and kind of give everybody a nuanced and balanced view, and to see both sides of the societal problem and societal benefit we call social media and technology, and to give as many people the tools to kind of balance that. But I will leave with this, and I would say go on your screen time, right? So if you have an iPhone or if you have an Android, I would say go on your settings and go to screen time and just see how long you're spending on your screen. I saw the average after COVID went from 9 hours to 10 hours, but I would say go on your screen time. And I'm not actually recommending that you cut it down. I'm not recommending that you increase it. I'm not recommending that you change anything. I just want you to go on your screen time and actually study it and ask yourself, is this where you want to be? Do I want to spend more time on an app? Do I want to spend less time on an app? uh, Actually be aware and essentially recognize where you're putting your time, and whether it's kind of changing time for Snapchat and filling it in with talking with more friends, whether it's pulling time from Facebook and essentially adding more time for work. Doesn't really matter what it is. The main thing is oftentimes you can kind of get trapped inside this rabbit hole. You can get essentially a bunch of content that you're really interested in, and you never really are aware of how much time you're spending. So I'm just uh, giving a quick tip, the last tip of the day. Go ahead and see how long you're spending, and actually post if you can, if you're willing to post how long you're spending and what you want to do about it, or do you want to keep it the same? That's completely fine. So I would say like, comment, subscribe, and share this to someone that you think will have any interest. And again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for the listen. Have a good morning, and see you next time.